happening, people? Welcome back to 100% Chelsea. Now, before you all start, going in the comments, going, oh, where's Louis? Oh, where's Lewis? All that, calm down for a second, let me explain. Louis is doing his dissertation. He's planning on putting a tweet out tomorrow or later today about the Cardiff game. He won't be there. He is focusing on his dissertation. It's in for him for Wednesday. He needs to get it done. So he said he wants to focus on that. Lewis at the minute is busy as well. I'm not entirely sure what he's doing, but he said he was busy. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, however way you want to look at it, it's just me for today. And similarly to how it's different setup in terms of people here, this, as you'll probably be able to tell, is the title, of the video is the Cardiff build-up show. However, it will be slightly different today, only because the past couple of weeks we've had the international break. There's not too much to talk about for the most part. Obviously, there's a few players which I'll touch on as a little bit later, but there's not too much to talk about. It's been a bit of a quiet couple of weeks. There's a bit of news here and there, but it's kind of unsubstantial at the minute. So, as I mentioned, the main things I'm going to talk about, I've got my laptop next to me, so I can talk about stuff. The main stuff I want to talk about, is some of the Chelsea players on international duty, how they looked, whether I think for a couple of them who are kind of on the fringes, whether they can push on to next season, obviously with the possible transfer ban looming. Then I kind of want to touch on Sarri's comments that were made about Hudson-Odoi. He's made a few in the last day or so. And again, before you start going, oh, he's going to talk negatively, I'm not. It's going to be a bit of both. I want to kind of pick apart what he said. I've got the whole quote with me, or the majority of it, and I want to pick apart what he said, pick out the good bits, the bad bits, etc. And then obviously we've got the Cardiff preview. So yeah, just going in straight into it, talking about some of the players in international duty. The first player I want to touch on is it's amazing actually. I found out that he's the longest serving Chelsea player currently in our squad. He's not really. He's probably got no chance of playing for us, but I wanted to touch on him because he could be important in the coming season, only because he's had a lot of experience playing. While he might not have had a lot of experience playing at the very top level, he has had a lot of experience playing. As I said, he's the longest serving player in our squad, and with David Luiz possibly moving on, and with that opening up a spot in the centre-back spot, Callas could possibly come in. I doubt he will. I doubt, especially considering the international duty, which I'm about to talk about, I don't think he will. But I just kind of want to touch on him because I saw him quite a lot in the Czech Republic versus England game. Obviously, I saw highlights of the game versus Brazil, and I kind of think it just highlights he's not good enough. He's not Premier League quality. He's not Chelsea quality at all. Against England specifically, like you saw the own goal, that was dreadful. That's not even, you can't put any blame apart from on him on that. That's terrible from him. He can easily clear that away. He didn't. It just, the whole game, I think you should see the scoreline, see how it reflects on anything in sort of continuation of that, the Brazil game. They lost 3-1. He's coming up he's coming up against players in that team who you'd come up against in the Premier League on a similar level, same with in Europe where he might be playing. You can't afford to be that poor. You cannot afford, that wasn't even a full strength Brazil squad as well, you cannot afford to be that poor just in defence. You can't afford to defend that naively, in a sense. It was really, really poor. But sort of moving on from here, I want to talk more, focus more on players that are definitely in the Chelsea squad. I think there is only one place sort of to start, and that's with France, and that's with N'Golo Kante to a sense, but more importantly, Olivier Giroud. Now, third top goal scorer, for France, only one behind Michel Platini, just behind Henry, obviously. Passing David Trezeguet. I mean, he's an incredible player. I think he's so underrated as a player. There's a lot been coming out sort of past week or so. I've seen a lot of things where it's like he's underrated. He carried Montpellier, for example, to a title. He's now France's top goal scorer, this and that. And I think as with every stat, or with the majority of stats, there is a little bit of overinflation to that. But I think it does speak to how underrated he is. He is so underrated. You can see with France what happens when he's got quality around him. For the most part in England, probably less with Arsenal, but certainly while he's been at Chelsea, take Eden Hazard out of the equation, and the quality around him in terms of an attacking sense has been so lacking in comparison to what he's used to while playing for France. The comparability is just, it's not there, it's incomparable. The sort of the attacking prowess of France that he's playing alongside with in comparison to Chelsea. I mean, you just look at some of the players, he's either playing with Barkley, who I'll touch on with England, or Pogba, for example, in terms of Chelsea. In France, you've got either Willian or Griezmann or Pedro and Mbappe or Pedro and Lamar, for example. I know it's not quite there, or Dembele, for example, with France, and it's just, I think it speaks volumes to how good he is as a player. And saying Kante is just Kante, I think you can't really say much more, for example, to be honest. And then moving on from that, the next person I want to touch on is Eden Hazard, 100 caps for Belgium, scored a goal against Cyprus, scored another one or two against Russia, I believe. There was also something else that happened in the game. It was quite funny to watch. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'd advise you to go and watch the Russian goal if you haven't seen it. Oh, T-Boy, mate. And the other thing I want to touch on, obviously, I mentioned players coming in to next season. I think that he's a player that could come in, but I don't think he will, and that's solely because I don't think Sarri trusts him. If he trusted him, he would have kept him. And that's Michy Batshuayi. Scored a goal against Cyprus. I watched the highlights versus Russia as well, very good. It was unlucky not to score one goal, I think, at the post. And we're seeing as well at Palace this season in his first game, I think it was, when he had the chance and he forced a very good save from the opposition goalkeeper. I can't remember, I do apologise, I can't remember for the life of me who they were playing. But he is a player he's just a natural goal scorer for me. And I think he may not have the technical ability, you could say. He might not be quite up there in terms of, your Giroud or your Higuains in terms of their build-up play. But I think as just a goal scorer, he is very good. But yeah, as I said, I don't particularly see him coming in next season unless Sarri leaves, only because for me, Sarri would have kept him. As a manager, unless the two strikers you've got are world class, I don't see why you'd leave your squad with only two strikers. It does put yourself in an unnecessarily poor position. But finally, with the players on this actually, and the sort of the main points that I think people will be waiting for, or I want to talk about going into England, Ross Barkley and Hudson-Odoi. I'll start with Barkley. I think that there's some points I want to touch on within this. There's different bits, there's different tacks to take. But I think that first I'm going to say brilliant versus Montenegro. He was fantastic. 2 goals taken very well. We've seen similar goals. I think it was Malmo away, where he scored that goal that sort of put us on that way to winning that game. And then what else? I think his whole game. I think in the game with Czech Republic when he came on, I thought that lost's the wrong word. I think he looked a bit sluggish. I don't think he was quite up to the pace of the game. I think that speaks to the fact that I know there's obviously the scorelines don't quite match up with that to an extent, but I think Czech Republic are a better team. They're a better quality of opponent, slightly better than Montenegro, and I think that kind of speaks to that. And that's one of the points I want to bring up. I think that everyone is hyping this Barkley. I think it was brilliant. It was brilliant play. It was an amazing game. But I want to kind of want to take a step back and just kind of hold on that. And I think it does speak. This is a thing Chelsea fans tend to do. We've seen it with Hudson-Odoi. We've seen it with Pedro after the Tottenham game. We've seen it with Christensen at times. We've seen it with loads of players. I want to kind of step back and say it was very good play. It was very good performance. Very good goals. It was Montenegro. It's not it's not an Italy. It's not a Brazil. It's not a Germany. It's not even slightly lower down. You say your Slovakias or your Waleses or your Slovenians, etc. I don't think it's, or your Polands, for example. I don't think it's quite up there. And so I think take a step back. Calm, but I think, as I said, very good performance, very good 2 goals. The other player that played both games, and my God, I know what I just said about hyper players, but let me have this one, Hudson-Odoi. When he came on versus Czech Republic, I said this, if you haven't seen it, I would advise, I know it's a rival channel, but go and check out on AFTV the Supporters Club episode I was in, where I was with Turkish, obviously, Flex, and Toby, a Tottenham fan. We were talking about top 4. I mentioned there, briefly touched on Hudson-Odoi in that video, and when he came on for England, he looked so comfortable. He genuinely looked like he'd been playing for years. Like when he started against Czech Republic, he looked so comfortable on the ball, the way he was gliding across the pitch, and it was amazing to see. And I genuinely was actually a little bit kind of aghast in terms of I didn't know what to say. I was not expecting it to be that good. Against Montenegro as well, I think that I've seen, obviously I'll touch on Sarri's comments, but I've seen some kind of comments made and people in response saying, like Sarri saying, I watched him for 20 minutes, he was not that very good on the right. When he went out to the left, he was better. there's bits and pieces to that. For me, I think that the only thing I'm going to say about it is that he's right in a sense. He wasn't as good on the right as he was on the left, but I think in Southgate's defence, most of the season, if he's watched Hudson-Odoi, he's seen him play on the right because that's where he plays. Another point I'll make to that is that if that's the case when Willian and Hudson-Odoi are playing together in Europe, why isn't Hudson-Odoi playing on the left? But that's kind of immaterial. The main point I want to say is if you're only watching a guy for 20 minutes, I don't think you can really judge his game. I think that we've said this plenty of times when we've seen players come on in games, like when we do player ratings at the end of games, when players will play for 10-15 minutes, we can't really judge them because you're not really seeing the overall game, you're only seeing a little snippet of what they're capable of for the most part. And so I think that, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't, it's not something like, I think, he's definitely wrong, he shouldn't be saying that. I think it's probably not the right thing to say, but at the same time that he did look at it in a kind of objective way, so I'll give Sarri that. But my thing is that Hudson, he just looks comfortable. Like, he looks so comfortable playing with some of the players. I think you look at the link-up play sometimes with Sancho, with Kane, with Sterling, it just looks so good. And I think he can genuinely, I think this kind of proves he needs to get in the Chelsea team more, which is another thing I'll touch on later. But he looks like he can play football so well, and it's really refreshing to see. I can't remember last being this hyped about a Chelsea talent, like a young talent. I think the last time I can genuinely remember was Musonda, but he's not on the level. But before that, I can't remember. Maybe Piazon, but again, I don't think Piazon was ever at that level. I can't remember, to be completely honest. But as I say, it's so good to see. It's really refreshing to see. But that's kind of it in terms of Hudson-Odoi and sort of the international. Let me know if there's any players I missed out that I kind of tried to focus on the key ones. Obviously, with having 40 players out on loan, there's many players that went out that were playing that maybe not aren't in the club. Like Omaruo played for Nigeria both games. I know Jorginho played both games, but he didn't really do a lot as far as I know. I could be wrong, but as far as I know, he didn't do too much. Christensen didn't do too much. He only played 60 minutes out of 120 minutes or something like that. 180 minutes of football. So I didn't really feel it necessary to comment on him. There were a lot of players I could have talked about, but they weren't kind of key players for me. Obviously, I focused on Callas, you could argue he's not a key player, but it's swings and roundabouts. We're going to the next thing I want to touch on, and I will come back to this because it's a big thing for me to talk about. It's going to require a lot of nitpicking. Is Sarri's comments that were made in the press conference yesterday about Hudson-Odoi, because I think it's quite not telling is the wrong word, but it's quite insightful. I think in terms of as I said, there's a lot to pick apart. So we'll be back for that in one moment. What's going on, people? Welcome back to your match build-up show. Now, before you break there, you'll probably be a little jump cut. Before your break, I mentioned in the next bit I want to talk about Sarri's comments on Hudson-Odoi in the press conference yesterday. I think as I said, they're not telling so much. It's just a bit insightful for me, like to look at. I think that, as I said, there's a lot to nitpick. There's a lot to get in. So I'll go through the comments now, and I'll pick it apart. I'll go through the good and the bad sort of as I go through. So he said he's ready to play against any opponent. That's good to hear, but we're hearing a sort of similar thing. We heard it after Tottenham, so that doesn't really tell me a lot. He needs to improve, and I want him to improve. Wholeheartedly agree. I don't think any fan is saying he's like the finished article. He's not. So I agree with that. He has to stay with his feet on the floor. He has to work every day and improve his left foot. Improve in the defensive phase, his movement without the ball, and I want him to improve because his potential is really, really very, very high. Now, with that bit, the kind of main bit I wanted to, he has to stand his feet on the floor. I think he just means in terms of grounded. Again, wholeheartedly agree. I think Sarri's got to hit the nail on the head. I think we don't want his head to get too big. We've seen it before. We've seen it with Ravel Morrison. We've seen it with Paul Pogba when he started at United before he went to Juventus. We've seen it with other players in the past. Charlie Musonda I mentioned earlier. For me, I'm always going to say he is someone with Neymar's attitude to playing, but with about a tenth of the ability. He's not. His ability doesn't match how he feels his ability is, and I think that can be said for quite a few players. I think what Sarri said there is absolutely spot on. Another bit I want to touch on, which I don't. It's not me kind of criticising Sarri. It's more I'm trying to work out. I don't feel the need. I don't know why he said it personally. and that's that when he says he needs to prove the defensive phase. And the reason I say that is because, for the most part, none of our wingers can defend. I know we saw Pedro against Tottenham. We saw that brilliant challenge. I think it was it Kane or Ericsson? When he came back, he won the ball, drove with it up the pitch. But apart from that, I don't really remember any of our wingers being particularly good defensively. I don't really think any of them are that good, to be honest. So that I'm unsure as to how necessary that was. Obviously, you want your wingers to improve, you want everyone to improve defensively, but I don't know how necessary that was. Apart from that, as I said, the rest of kind of that bit of what he said, I completely agree. I think there are certain aspects he needs to improve. We saw that against, with England against Montenegro when he was out on the right. He was okay, wasn't brilliant. But apart from that, though, he says in this moment he is a very good player, but he has the possibility to become more, and I want him to become more for Callum and for also me. And again, I echo that sentiment. We want him to become better. I think that he can become better. He is a good player. I think, as has been said many a time, he is probably our second best winger. But I think he does need to improve. There are aspects of his game that need to improve. This next bit, again, similar to the bit before, I'm not criticising Sarri, this wasn't, I don't even think it's unnecessary. I think this is a lot of, what am I trying to say? It's, what is being said next, or I'm about to read out, it has to come true, basically, which we'll see in a minute. Give me 1 second. Basically, what he said was, we have to play 8 matches in 23 days, so I'm sure Callum will start 2 or 3 matches. That bit, that's the bit I kind of want to focus on to begin with. That needs to be true, I think, for Sarri's sakes in the eyes of the fans. He already said, as I mentioned earlier, with Tottenham, he said after that game he was ready to start playing some games. He's not started a Premier League game since. Up until the Malmo game away, he'd only played 16 minutes of football in 2019. He still is not really featuring all that heavily for the most part in Premier League games. Yeah, he came on against Everton, I believe it was, and he was playing well. But I think hopefully this is an indication he's going to play more. He's going to start more. I'm hoping that's the case. I'm really hoping that's the case. As he mentioned, 8 games in 23 days. That might not seem like a lot, especially considering last month we had so many games in social notice. We were having multiple games across 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, and so it was difficult. But I think this needs to come true. I think this absolutely needs to come true. As I said, for the sake of Sarri, it's probably a bit extreme, but for the sake of Sarri in the eyes of the fans, doing this will help him a lot in the eyes of the fans. If he plays Hudson-Odoi, I think that it will significantly help in the eyes of the fans, and I think the fans ultimately, if they back him, it then helps him, because I think if the fans suddenly turn on him and it becomes almost a Mike Ashley situation, at Newcastle. I know obviously he hasn't left, or a Wenger situation. Mike Ashley situation at Newcastle, or an Arsene Wenger situation at Arsenal. Where although they like Mike Ashley hasn't left and Arsene Wenger didn't leave for ages, it can get to a point where fans will just turn on the manager to a point where the owners have no choice but to sack him. And I don't think Sarri necessarily wants it. I know he's also come out and said that he's not a manager of the fans, so to speak, but I think he does need to try and keep them on side. The next bit, this is the first bit I'm going to have to disagree with him. He said that he has started a lot of matches, probably not in the Premier League, and this is what I was going to look up, because that's simply not true. He's played 8 games. And that none of them were a Premier League start. What more can be said? That to say he started a lot of games is genuinely ludicrous. I'm stumbling on words. I can't really fathom why he said that. I can't fathom it. Like I'll go back. Myself and Louis got a lot of criticism in one of the videos we did when we picked apart what he said, and we criticised what Sarri said after a thing. We got told we were being needlessly negative, and I think some of that does ring true a little bit, and that's why I've tried to be a bit more sort of objective with what he said. I picked out the good and the bad, but this is just wrong. This is just wrong. Like he's not played a lot of games. He's played 8 games. That's it. As far as I'm aware, he's played. Actually, no, that was only in Premier League. Give me a second. He has actually played, but even so, like 8 games in the Premier League, saying he's played, so many. He started so many matches. It's just not true. It's just not true. I mean, even with that, he's played. Hang on, 8, 12, 14, 29 games this season. He's played 4 in the FA Cup, 2 in the League Cup, 8 in the league, and 15 other, which I see is Europe. Even so, like that's not exactly. It's not mind-blowing numbers, if I'm being completely honest. It's a bit more than I said, which is fair enough, but it's not mind-blowing. Also, what he said was that he said probably not in the Premier League in terms of starting a lot of matches, but that's by chance. Again, that's just wrong. It's not by chance. It's by choice. It's genuinely by choice. It's. I can understand towards the start of the season, fair enough. I can understand at certain points in the season you don't want to play him, but we're now playing with Willian, who, apart from in Europe or apart from his lower teams, is poor the majority of the time. Same with Pedro, for the most part, apart from the all game, is poor. There is no excuse. There is genuinely no excuse unless there is a tiredness, a fatigue issue, or injury issue. There is genuinely no excuse. And again, he reiterates it is not a problem to put in a Premier League match as he is already. And again, I go back to what I said at the very start when he mentioned this. If that is the case, this has to be followed through. We heard this after Tottenham. We heard this again before or after another game. We've heard this multiple times during the season. We've constantly heard he is ready, he is ready. We've heard then that he is not entirely ready. He has to improve. He won't be at his peak till he's 22, 23. He won't be the best. He won't be suitable. Or we've heard so many sort of iterations of it. We've heard so many. It's been changed by so many people. It's been regurgitated so many times. If this is the case, he is ready. Which I'm gonna. Even though I've said it so many times, I'm gonna stick on this. If he is ready, he has to start. I see him starting a few games. I see him starting against Prague, both home and away. At least one of those games, you'd hope both. I can see him starting against Cardiff, as we'll get on to later on when we do the lineup predictions. There has to be a level of commitment to that. Otherwise, as I said, Sarri in the eyes of the fans only gets worse, or for the majority of fans, only gets worse. But yeah, that's about it. As I said, there's a lot to touch on. As I said, it's a lot of, it's some positive, as I said, there's some positive in that in terms of he does have to improve. There's stuff that I agree with him. There's stuff that I feel was unnecessary to say, talking about defensive stuff and talking about there's a couple of other bits, but then there's some I disagree with, which is that he's played a lot of games and that it's by chance. But as I said, those sort of the comments. What do you think of his comments? Do you agree or disagree with what I said? Do you have any other comments on what Sarri has said about Hudson-Odoi? Let me know down in the comments below. And now we'll have another short break and we'll get on to our last bit, which is the Cardiff preview and then our lineup predictions. What's happening, people, and welcome back to your Cardiff match build-up show. Now, before a little break, as I said, now moving on to the Cardiff preview. And so I just kind of want to touch on Cardiff a little bit. They are currently out of form is probably the wrong phrase, but they're not. They're kind of middle of the road. They're middling a little bit. They've got 3 wins and 8, with 2 of those being at home against West Ham and against Bournemouth. The other one being, I did look it up. If you give me a second, I can't remember who it was against, but yeah. And the main problem they might have is that they've got no Sol Bamble and no Callum Patterson. Callum Patterson probably isn't as important. But for me, Sol Bamble for them is really important. He's out for the rest of the season. He is their best defender for me by far. And I think that's going to be tough for them. I think that's a real sort of low point. I think that's somewhere, if you look at his replacement, Aquila Manga, he's nowhere near the level. He's not Premier League quality. I think we've seen that in matches this season. I think we saw it against Arsenal. I think we've seen it in other games. he's just not there. And I think that although our away record is poor, I think that this is a game we should definitely win. I think this is, as I said, I mentioned before about the Supporters Club show on AFTV. I would recommend you go and watch that. But I mentioned in that game, excuse me, I mentioned in that show that our away, in terms of our away games, I can only realistically maybe see us winning one. Maybe Leicester on the last day of the season, only because by that point they will have nothing to play for, whereas we might do, depending on how the other fixtures go in the top 4 race. But at the same time, it's still Leicester. It's a hard team to go and play, especially with how they are at the minute. So Cardiff is realistically the only away game I can see us winning at the minute. And I think we need to go and win this game. I think with Bamba being out, I think this needs to be another Burnley performance where we saw it in the season, like a 4-0, 5-0 real statement, where we're building that goal difference back up. Because at the minute, in terms of Arsenal, who are 4th, our goal difference is about 5 or 6 less than them, I believe. That's really poor. That's worrying. So I think we need to build some of that back up with this Cardiff game. I think it's certainly a game we can go and do that with. I think it's always tough when you go down to the teams at the bottom, because we saw with Huddersfield. I know they lost to West Ham, but they turned up in that game. They put on a good performance in an attacking sense. Defensively, they were shambles, but that kind of speaks to the fact that they're not Premier League quality. But I think that going to the teams at the bottom is sometimes hard, because they can turn up. They're fighting for relegation. They're fighting to stay in the Premier League. And I think that it's a game that it's a potential banana skin for me, as I think any away games are till the end of the season. As I said, the other two in terms of the big team, I don't think will be those. Leicester maybe, but we have to win this game. Apart from that, I think the only sort of last bit of this preview to go into is the lineup predictions and the score prediction. The lineup for me, I think it will just be pretty standard. I say pretty because I think there'll be a couple of small changes here and there. I think Kepa will start in goal. I think the back 4 will just be kind of as you are for the most part. I think Kepa in goal. I think Dave right back. I think Emerson will start left back. I think he has to start at left back. Number 1, more than anything, because Alonso is god awful. I think we saw against Everton. There were times in that game, I think Louis mentioned in the review at the end of the game, he was walking when we were down. We were, I think, 1-0 down at that point, or 2-0, I can't quite remember, but he was walking back. And by the time their attack kind of finished, he was sort of in line. If you put a line straight across the pitch, he was in line with the centre circle, like the edge of the centre circle. It's on our half. That's dreadful from a fullback. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're one of the best left backs in the world, like an Alexandro or a Jordi Alba or an Alaba, or you're one of the whatever. That's terrible. So I think Emerson will play. I think midfield 3. I think Jorginho and Kante will definitely play for me, and I think Barkley will start. To be honest, I think that game against Montenegro, excuse me, I think that will put him in good stead in Sarri's eyes. I think if he watched, we watched 20 minutes of it, obviously, and so I think he could play. Actually, either him or Loftus-Cheek. If Loftus-Cheek's fit, I can see Loftus-Cheek starting, actually, because it might be a game he can kind of stamp his authority on. But I more likely see Barkley playing, and then the front 3, I see Higuain playing definitely. He's another person I didn't touch on really in the international duty. He has announced his international retirement, which is not all that surprising. Bear in mind, he is now 30. He's in his early 30s. He's getting on a bit. They've got other players that can replace him, like Cardiff, Lautaro Martinez, stuff like that. So it's not all that surprising. But yeah, I think Higuain will play, Hazard will play, and I think Hudson-Odoi will play. I think this is the game that he will kick off in terms of Sarri can show that he's going to play him. I could be wrong, but I see him playing this game personally. And it could be a game, as I said, with the Cardiff defence as poor as it is, could be a game he has a real good time in. But I'll just run that through quickly one more time. Everyone, it's Kepa in goal. We've got Emerson. I didn't run 2 centre backs. David Luiz, Rudiger for me with 2 centre backs. So we've got Kepa, Emerson, David Luiz, Rudiger, Dave, Jorginho, Kante, Barkley, and then Hazard, Higuain, and Hudson-Odoi. Let me know what you think in the comment section below on that. If you agree with me, disagree with me, what do you think? And finally, in terms of the score prediction, I'm going to say 3-0. It's actually, no, I'm going to say 2-0. So it's probably going out on a limb with 3-0 in terms of Cardiff's defence, but they could easily just do. It's nil with Neil Warnock in charge. I could quite see them doing, what We've seen Bournemouth do against us what we saw Southampton do against us at home, Everton when we played them at home. All these teams, when they just sit back, I think they could do that, because for them a point is better than nothing at this stage, and so yeah, they can just see the game out and get a point, and it's happy days for them. So I think 2-0. I think we've got enough quality just to about get past that, but I don't think it'll be an absolute, like a Burnley, as I said, or a Huddersfield at home, just a mauling basically. But as I said, let me know what you think in the comment section below, whether you agree or disagree with any of the things I've said in the video, whether you agree on comments on Hudson-Odoi, on the stuff in the international duty. I didn't really touch on anything opinion based for the most part, but if you agree on any of that stuff, on the Hudson-Odoi stuff with Sarri, on the lineup predictions and the score predictions. That is about it from me. As I said, Louis will not be there for the game tomorrow, so as I said, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, you will have me in charge in terms of being presenting. Obviously Lewis will be there, all the others will be there, the regulars. And yeah, we will see you tomorrow for Cardiff. Peace.